Well, hey, welcome back to Blunt in the Bedroom. I am Patty, and I am here today with Arely, and we have two special guests. We have Raphael and Antonio, both members of the My Brother podcast, here to share with us and talk with us all about spirituality. I have the feeling this is part one of many.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll be going on forever.
It's a big topic.
Yeah. Right. It can rabbit trail all over the place. So, well, let's see. How do we all know each other? Arely and I had a mutual friend, and let's see. How am I going to describe this?
I mean, the same mutual friend is how I met her through Antonio, and which is my husband, and the mutual friend's husband work together.
Yes.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
And then Raphael and Antonio are brothers.
I'm the link for all of this.
Yeah. What's that?
I'm the link for all of this.
Oh, I think Jenna too.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes Jenna's on here. All right. So since we want to talk about spirituality, maybe we could start with a definition of spirituality. Not even sure what I would say for a definition. Yeah. Raphael, do you want to kick off what your definition of spirituality is?
My definition for spirituality, it goes beyond faith for me. Like it's deep. It's deeper than what you believe in. It's the connection that you feel inside of you that you know is there, but you can't explain.
Ooh, feeling you know is there but can't explain. Huh? Would you say that's a problem of language?
Yeah.
That it's something that defies having words put to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you can't put it in words. You can't put it in time zones. You can't even keep it in cultures.
Fascinating. Ooh, this is interesting. Okay. So then you said faith, that it goes beyond faith. So you said faith is what you believe in?
Yeah, it goes beyond the faith that you believe in. So even
you mean the religion?
Yeah, even okay. Beyond the religion, the religion is the box that everybody puts spirituality in.
Mm-hmm.
But once you break the box, you become more spiritual, and now you tap into a place inside of you that is very, very broad and is deeper than what they try to keep you in that box for.
So do you think that
it's a reason for the box?
Yeah.
Oh my God, this got real really fast.
Yeah. It did. I didn't think we were going to get here till the end.
Okay, I love this. So if faith / the religion, if we're not too stuck on faith, I think we can just leave it at that. Mm-hmm. That's the box that we get put in to try to describe this thing that's bigger and ineffable that you're calling spirituality. Am I understanding what you're saying right?
Yeah.
Okay. I can work with that.
Me too. I agree with that.
Yeah. I like that a lot. Do you think that well, okay, so I'll just ask for you. So do you hold a religion and also recognize this larger spirituality?
For me, like even being in the religion that I was in, I've always been spiritual, even as a little boy. So I mean, you can, but you have to realize that at a certain age, you're gonna come out of it. Like you start to see things differently. What it's a saying that Dick Gregory said before. He says when the universe chooses you to see things, to see the truth, and put on the glasses of the truth, or some way he phrased it. You can't take them off. You can't force anybody to wear them. Mm-hmm. And you know what I'm saying, basically saying you see everything completely different. It turns everything on its head.
Yeah.
So even being in, like, I can walk around all day and say I'm Christian, but that's just like I said, it's just a title to me. That's where all the wars come from, is
Yeah.
Everybody's title. Oh, you Muslim or you Christian. Like, but once you get outside of those boxes, those titles, you'll realize that we all are the same. We all connected to one spirit.
Yeah. That's really lovely.
And for you, is a spirit or God or the spirit, is it one like entity, or is it like more of like an energy, or like how does that look for you? Like, is it gendered, man, woman?
Well, for me, I mean, like I said, I've always been told man, but I mean, if even with me being the way I was taught is it can be man, it can be woman, because it's going to come into you in the form of what you need at that moment.
I see. Okay.
So if you need a father, it's going to be a father. If you need a mother, it's going to be a mother. You need a brother, it's going to be a brother. A sister, it's going to be a sister. It's like a shapeshifter, but it
Mhm.
passes all time and everything that's constructed to make you be this social person.
Man. So you feel like it's a spirit?
Yeah, it's a spirit.
A spirit. Okay.
hmm
Do you feel like the title for it is important?
No, the thing that people tend to forget, like we focus on one spirit, but even in a book, it's a book I read called the Encyclopedia of the Spirits. There are millions of spirits. It's not just one. And what the thing about it is, you call in this spirit one spirit, but don't realize that spirits take each other's name.
Can you explain this more? I'm having a hard time
Okay,
understanding this.
so let's say you talking to Oshun for like the African folks, and not realizing you call on Oshun and somebody else show up because it takes that name as well. That's
Do you
why
feel
it can jump across cultures, because it's one, like these spirits are taking on each other's name, jumping across cultures and times and stuff.
do you feel like these individually named spirits, whether they're impersonating another spirit or using their own name, do you see these spirits as entities that are entirely separate unto themselves, or are they like a piece of the greater whole spirit?
To me, I feel like it runs in clusters. Like it will be like a huh, like your lymphatic nervous system.
Ooh, okay.
I'm
So
lost
you got
now.
like it'll be pieces of your, like a body. It's a whole body, just like us. We supposed to
Okay.
be pieces of a body, right? Your consciousness is connected to the great I am, the Most High, however you call him, and it's like your lymphatic nervous system will be like the universe, the stars, and the galaxies and things of that nature, right?
Mhm.
So I feel like that's how they run in like clusters or like grapes, to make it simpler.
Okay.
Is it kind of like now I'm gonna try to draw an analogy with science stuff. So would you say it's a little bit like with how we group animals in terms of like cat family and then, or like vertebrates, and then cat family, dog family, whatever, and then those are broken down
Yes,
for species?
yes,
It's
yes,
kind of like that.
yeah.
Okay, okay. That makes sense. Um these spirits, so I think that the closest thing that's coming to my mind that is an idea that I kind of run through is the idea of source energy. And
hmm
so um I guess I'm trying to figure out if maybe source energy and the spirit are just each of our individual words for a thing that we both like know is there. Am I coming back around to where you started this?
That's
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
what he
I
said.
mean, that's what it is. I mean, your words is what you identify with that makes you feel comfortable with it. But I mean, in the end, you wind up at the same thing.
Yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
there's a great book and TV show. Well, the TV series isn't good as the book, but American Gods. is a phenomenal book that basically plays with the concept of this of everybody's representation of their deity or their faith or whatever essentially comes from within your knowledge or culture base. So how you believe in within your culture, that is how your deity presents itself, except for certain circumstances. And it has like all the different versions of Jesus for the Easter episode, but it also has Esther, and it kind of digs into that. And yeah, a lot of the representations of these deities or these spirits are essentially just cultural. Of it's like in the movie Captain Marvel, how there's a scene where she has to go to this like uh some kind of council or whatever, but they appear to you in a form that you recognize. And for her, it was the captain who taught her. Same
Mm-hmm.
concept. It only goes off of what you know, and it kind of builds from there. So
Mm-hmm.
for like the native communities or whatever culture, if you are more present with nature, then your deities or things you worship in are going to be reminiscent of the nature that you see and deal with, and your understanding of that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, because how could our mind build a metaphor of something we'd never encountered?
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Huh.
a lot more practical than we think about it, but it ends up
Mm-hmm.
being in representation way fuller. But I mean, that's the universe part of it is, once you find your place in it, because you're essentially a part of it, and once you come to that understanding, then it expands more into, okay, well, you don't even have to say it, you just feel it. You know where you're at in your place in the universe, and you have a
Yep.
different perspective of it. And you can move within that. That it's almost like frequencies of vibration. Once you vibrate on that frequency, you pick up everything that's on that frequency.
Everything.
And if you weren't
Mm-hmm.
there before, then you only pick up what's within your frequency.
Yep.
Right. Wow, that metaphor really works for me too, the frequency thing. Like that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. Like the idea of kind of tuning in so that you're receptive to a particular thing. Oh gosh, I had a thought along the way somewhere. um, oh, I know. This is also making me wonder if a parallel metaphor could be made to the spirit with Carl Jung. His work, he was a psychologist, but he talked a lot about the collective unconscious. There we go. I said it right. And so this idea of like, and his thought was that that was transcultural too, and that within each of our cultures we have like archetypes,
Mm-hmm.
male and female, different archetypes that embody sort of like different aspects of us that we either connect with or tap into, and that he felt like those were across all humanity. And so I'm wondering if that starts to be those dog family,
Mm-hmm.
cat family, or like you're saying, like groupings of different types of feelings or energeticness. Correct me if I'm
Yeah.
misinterpreting the things you're saying, but
Yeah. I mean, it could be that.
I think
It
that
can
sounds
definitely
right.
Yeah, it can definitely be that because you will think about when you have deja vu is something you've seen before and you don't
See,
know
I
how
see
you've
that
seen it
as different
before.
dimensions. That's how
Yeah.
I see the deja vu is like you
Mm-hmm.
for a second you stepped into another dimension of yourself. That starts getting really like probably it's not true, but like it's fun to think about
It
kind of
can
thing.
also be a
Yeah,
frequency
yeah.
thing too. I constantly have thoughts of what if every day of our life we're living at the same exact time. And sometimes when we
Mm-hmm.
have deja vu, we're just tapping to the frequency of another day. And that's why we
Mm-hmm.
get pieces of it to exact detail. And it just how tuned into that frequency you are, how much detail of it you get. Some people have full vivid pictures, some people get pieces of something. Like I get snippets of stuff before it happens. And it's insignificant stuff. But then I'm like to the point where I'm having snippets of remembering a snippet. So it's almost a loop at some
Yes.
point. You're like, all right, how do you
Yes.
clear that up? Because you remember remembering it. So it's doubling down on something. It's like maybe we are living the same day every day in
Mm-hmm.
concurrence.
the TV series The Flash has a lot of that in it, where you
Yeah,
walk they wander into parallel worlds and they see themselves as different people, bad people. I mean, you gotta think about it. At some point, there's a bad version of you somewhere.
doppelgangers.
Yeah,
Are you
and
talking
Doppelgangers.
multiverse?
yeah, and you gotta think about it, like you ever had a person come to you and say, "You look familiar," but they've never met you in their life.
Hmm.
I always just assume I forgot. I'm the one that forgot. That's always
No,
my assumption.
like seriously, like got also with that, like your spirit has met a person before.
Mm, yeah.
Because you got to think about when you sleep, most of the time you literally leave your body. You actual plane to other countries and wherever because your body's not tied, your spirit's not tied to your body, except for by a cord which connects to your body. Why you like and whenever you like when you gotta think about it, whenever you have a baby, right? It's important to name that child. Within I know a boy is like soon as he's born, and a girl, I think they give you 7 days. It might be reversed.
What? I don't know what you're
Because
talking
if you
about.
You gotta finish.
Yeah, because whenever your spirit, like once you come, like your spirit is in this body. This body is just clay, so to speak. And once you have that baby's attached to the body by a string, but that name will seal it. It's still the spirit in,
Hmm.
so it knows who it is. Because when like just like when you die, your spirit instantly leaves. It don't stick around. When you breathe out your final breath, your spirit instantly gone.
See, I
Because
think
they
of
have
that as more
done,
as energy. Like
yeah.
for me, I don't know that I believe that. I mean, which it's a totally valid belief. I'm not like saying anything like that. But like for me, I think of it more as like we give energy to things, but we also
Hmm.
take energy, especially if you're an
Hmm.
empath. So I always think of it as if there's like a familiar feeling or something, that energy is already out there.
Hmm.
It's moving, it's coming back, it's going elsewhere. So I guess that's like I believe what you're saying. I mean, of course, like it's totally valid, but I think for me it's a little like the way I think about it at least is a little bit different.
Yeah, I know. Because I mean, even I know people crack jokes about zodiac signs and things of that nature, but I do know for a fact that cancers are literally like they're very 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 like spiritual. They're connected to the spiritual world some type of way, very very closely. Like they can walk in it and come back out type thing. But there's other signs like that too, and that's just what I believe that like because I mean from the things I experienced, like literally I could be talking to my mom and I will literally see like visions of what's going to happen around her type things, and I don't try to do it, I just do it. So it's a lot of different ways you can explain it, and long as you come back to the same point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can I ask a question about I think you said soul cord, like when your soul leaves your body at night when you're asleep?
Hmm.
Um, I'm, I don't think I've heard that very much, and I'm curious to know more about it and like where you heard of that and like how, I don't know. Tell me more.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. Um, I was in Afghanistan and my daughter was in Tennessee. But I remember times where I literally left my body just to go check on my child across over. So literally just standing and watching her and making sure she was okay. And somebody would come to me and literally this guy told me, he says, when I knocked on your door, I heard you go, and that was like, okay, that's a sign that I had to come back because you gotta think about it. If you out your body's not breathing. Because
Oh,
like, yeah, it's not breathing. It's basically like you're dead, so to speak. Or if you ever seen the show Lock and Key on Netflix.
I have not.
Okay, on Lock and Key on Netflix, there's a scene where this boy named Bodie, he finds a key to a door called a ghost door. And as soon as he walks through the door, his spirit jumps out his body, but his body hit the floor, and it looks like he's dead. And the only way for that body to come back is his spirit got to come back to it. So it's something like that. The way I
So
can explain it.
Do you remember these times? Like, is it a lucid dream kind of thing? Like you remember like seeing your child at home and then
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because they were like very vivid. I've had moments where I've gone into literal trances to see things further down, like one female I was intending to get married to, but then as soon as I grabbed the ring, I had a whole vision about, yeah, you better not do this. So yeah, it's, and I don't know how I do it. I just do it. I don't try to do it. It just happens.
but like it's when you're awake and when you're asleep?
Yeah, I do it when I'm awake and when I'm asleep.
Okay, because it sounded like with the woman and the ring, that sounded awake, but then visiting your
Mm-hmm.
child sounded asleep.
Visit my
Okay.
child, I was asleep. So I can do it both ways. Don't understand how I do it, but it happens.
You ever tried to track like the conditions that are in place when it happens to try to make it happen more or anything?
Uh, Not really, because like you have to like when it first happens, it kind of like spooks the hell out of you. So you be like, maybe not. Yeah, I mean, I know I can remember things of like even when I was a child, I could remember hands coming and grabbing me and trying to pull me out of bed. So
Oh, that's scary.
yeah,
It is
yeah,
scary.
I remember that, and it used to scare me. Like even I remember one time it tried to grab me, and I jumped up and I ran the room with my mom and my stepdad, and I was laying on the edge of the bed, and I could feel the hand pull me. I felt the hand pull me, and I was like, hell no. So I went to holler, and they jumped up. So yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
So not only feeling like you're seeing a thing, but also even like physical
Yeah,
interaction.
I can feel I can feel it, see it. Sometimes you can smell it. I mean, yeah,
I mean, I
it's
suppose if you were traveling there, that would make sense that you could smell it if you were
mhm,
actually there.
yeah.
Has anyone else had that kind of lucid dream or trance based
Yes,
visions?
and I don't like
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
I don't like it at all. I do not feel comfortable leaving my body. Like not even I don't feel comfortable. I feel straight up unsafe. I always think if something goes wrong, I'm not gonna be able to go back. Yeah, no. I
Yeah,
shield myself.
that is a very big possibility too.
Yeah, that's what it freaks me out, and
Hmm.
I shield it from happening. It happened a few times when I was a kid, especially me sensing the spirits in the room or like the energy in the room, like trying, like just kind of waiting for me. I remember this one time I was so terrified I couldn't even scream. I was sleeping and there were four men in the corners of my room, like, well, one man in each corner, just watching me, like patiently waiting for me, like I don't know, to go to sleep or I don't know what, but it freaked me out so bad. I was, you ever so scared you can't even react? Like I
Hmm.
wanted to scream, but I like physically was just so scared. Yeah. So I don't mess with that stuff at all.
Yeah.
Antonio, what about you? What about your visions?
They're very random.
Come
None of them
closer.
are really. I'm sorry. It's all random. I don't know what the conditions are. Maybe it's just random times when I'm tapped into the right frequencies.
Hmm.
The one that like out of body experience that comes to mind, me and my uncle were playing around when we were kids, and you know the whole thing where like you hold your breath and somebody like pushes on your neck and you pass out. So we tested that theory. That does work. So you will
Oh
pass
no.
out. But what was interesting was when I dropped, I didn't realize I dropped. My uncle was freaking out trying to wake me up. But what was crazy to me was I watched the whole thing. I'm like, why is he trying to wake me up? I don't know what's going on here. Like I saw everything they were doing until they woke me up.
Like from above.
I don't know what angle I was from, but I'm
Okay.
watching everything as it happened. And I'm like, how do I know what they did when I wasn't awake? Because it was my uncle and I think my cousin was there or something. We were just playing around as kids. So, I mean, that happened. That's the most one. That's the one I can remember the most vivid.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I mean, I probably do have out of body experiences. I never even take stock in it at this point. It's just I think for me, it's just an acceptance of that is a part of my being. And even within like, to kind of tie it back into like the whole thing about religious faith and everything and the way that people practice them. So, we both grew up Southern Baptist
Mm-hmm.
and in the Black church. We have to be specific about that because the Black church and the white church in the South and in the North, well, pretty much everywhere, don't worship the same.
Anyway, at
But the
all.
best way I can explain it that may probably make a bit more sense is think about Santeria. Santeria, they took all of the African spirits and deities and things and eventually found ways to fit them into Christianity so they could worship in secret in front of the oppressors. That never stopped. Southern Baptists have been doing that for generations, even to the point to where some don't even recognize we're doing it anymore.
Right.
It's a matter of in the way that it is worshipped and in the ways when it's done right, it's not just you worship this deity, you're a part of something, you're tied to this deity versus just being a thing that you worship and hell yeah, this is what I believe, we'll do whatever, versus like, the Holy Ghost and speaking in tongues, like you're a part of something and it does take work and understanding to tap into it. But it is
Mm-hmm.
something that you feel ultimately. And like even like if you go into a Black church and listen to the choir sing, you will have a spiritual experience. This is going to happen. There's no stopping that.
Right.
And there's something to that. Uh, the frequencies that they're hitting with the notes is not necessarily intentional, but the whole concept of it is you are singing to rejoice in your faith and your praise and thank yous and appreciate the good things I have. And that comes out through your vocal cords and it reverberates in this building or wherever you are. And people literally feel it to where there's a reason why gospel music will move you when it is done properly. Because it is a spiritual experience and rejoicing
Mm-hmm.
and vocal and sound and the energy and it all comes together in a culmination of whenever you feel that, it really does jar you into an understanding of there is something bigger than me that I'm a part of or I'm witnessing at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
What always gets to me in a Black church is the mime ministries. That always, I don't know what about it, but it just like it's just a lot. Like you just feel all of it.
Wait, what did you say? What kind of ministries?
The mime ministries. So they put on so it's mime, like that move your hands and don't say anything, but it's to the gospel music.
Oh,
But they do a whole
You're talking about
performance.
interpretive dance.
They called it
oh,
mime ministries at one of the churches I went to. I don't know, but
Interpretive dance.
oh, is that what it's translated to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it is. But like I know, like in the South, it's called mime, but everywhere else, it's
Yeah,
basically
it's a
interpretive dance.
cultural. I mean, the language in itself too. The English language definitely doesn't have space to recognize understandings of other cultures, which is why there aren't words to describe things like in Spanish
Mm-hmm.
or French. Well, I didn't say French. I don't think French is that cultural. Well, either way, and like in native languages or indigenous languages,
Yeah.
and there's words for all these things. Whereas with the English language, you really don't have that many words for these understandings of things. And so you have to find ones that fit, and they don't always fit because of complexity or even just how immense some of these concepts are. They just don't fit in some of the small English words.
Right.
for
My
sure.
my thing is like we brought up speaking in tongues. I really believe whenever we speak in tongue, we're actually going back to our native languages because it runs along the line of who we really are. So we may feel like, oh, I'm just somebody say, oh, you're speaking gibberish, but you're actually speaking your native language, your native tongue outside of English. It's something that you are when you come to Earth, you already know. Like when babies come, they come knowing one way. It sounds like gibberish to us because we don't understand it, but it's actually a language that the actual language that they were born in their culture.
So
Because you
you're
got to
not
think
even
about
thinking
how.
that it's from Africa. You're thinking about it's like more of like,
There's a completely bigger energy that
yeah,
way.
like more.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's essentially recycled because you can remember a past life without ever realizing that you may have been not necessarily reincarnated, but just reborn. But that's where
Get
the name
closer.
thing, I'm sorry, the name thing comes into place because it's like a birthday. It's your mark in time and space. and the name binds you into that place of being within that body.
Exactly.
So as you move on to the next one, if you remember your name in a past life, there have been people who's like, oh yeah, you know, this was what I was or what I did in the past life. It's a connection to
Right.
what you were at one point.
Right.
Hmm.
Cause like I know, like when I was younger, I could crip walk, and I've never been to California then, and never seen a crip walk, but I could do it.
Hmm.
So I'm like, okay, I must have been a crip when I was young, when at another life, cause how the hell am I doing this? Never seen it before in my life, but I was doing it.
Interesting. Sometimes I wonder if that's the case with people that take like I don't know, have a head injury or whatever and end up speaking a totally different language or another accent completely, like even though they've never. Yeah, like I wonder about that sometimes because some of them aren't even like it makes no sense, you know? Like someone I read about or I saw an interview or something, someone she lives in Texas and she has this like not even just a British accent, but a proper British accent. Like it's weird. It's not just, you know how sometimes people say a few words, but you can kind, you know what I mean? She like straight up has like permanently, like it hasn't gone away in years.
Yeah.
From
Well, I
rural
mean,
Texas.
yeah. Sometimes certain injuries, especially to your head, will automatically reset your whole entire body to basically like go back to factory status. You know how like even I'll say even playing like video games, you know how you have a factory status and you can customize what you want, but you mess around and reset it, go hit factory reset and it goes to the original state. I feel like at times with head injuries, if you go on like let's say you from Tennessee, but you wind up talking Sudan language.
Hmm.
That's really where you're from, as far as like down your generations, and you
Yeah.
speak that language, but you've never heard it before.
I mean, languages all have changed too. So I'm
Hmm.
wondering if the speaking in tongues thing is like from so many generations ago when it sounded totally different, you know, when the words are
Right.
because this colonization, everything, things starts mixing in and words change. I mean, language evolves like anything else.
Hmm.
So, I'm wondering if when you speak in tongues, some of that is kind of like these different languages from many generations ago kind of coming
Hmm.
together or something.
Yeah.
It goes back that far. When I was in Israel, if you listen to Hebrew and you listen to somebody speaking in tongues, it sounds exactly the same.
Look the same. Yep.
So I think that it's interesting with speaking in tongues because I feel like that one unexpectedly crosses into lots of different spiritualities.
Yeah.
Because I think I first came across it in like a charismatic Christian context, and it happened where it was like during the worship part of our service, and kind of in a lull in the music, someone in the congregation would speak up really loudly with like a few lines in tongues, and then everyone would kind of wait, and then somebody else in the church would speak up and say the translation to the congregation. And I think, and so that was my introduction. But then I came across it again in kind of witchy stuff, where it gets used as part of either inducing or holding a trance state for
Hmm.
spellcraft type things.
Hmm.
And so I like where we started this conversation, that it's like we're talking about something that is bigger than the boxes, right?
Yeah.
So like, and the other word for speaking in tongues is glossolalia, which awesome. Say that
Never
one
heard
five
that
times
before.
fast. Huh?
I never heard that before.
Glossolalia. Yeah. Isn't that great fun? Um,
Yeah. I'm not
but
going to try it.
but here's the funny thing. When I was a charismatic Christian, I eventually could speak in tongues.
Really?
I can still speak in tongues.
Well, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And the Southern Black Church way of it's not just something you can do. Essentially, it's you are so overwhelmed with the spirit that it
Hmm.
manifests itself inside of you. So what you're doing at that point, you have no control over.
All over
So like
it.
it's not just speaking in tongues, it's as we call it, catching the Holy Ghost.
That's what we
Right.
call
It
it
looks like,
too.
you know, they're just kind of erratic dancing, but it's just you're so overcome by the spirit that it just you're literally consumed by it. So the trance
Mhm.
state is essentially not necessarily an out of body experience, but being possessed.
That's how I've
Yeah.
always believed it to be. When you catch the Holy Ghost, you like that's why I was surprised just now when you said that you can do it, because I didn't even think that was something that is like a thing you can do as far as like a talent. I thought it was just more like a thing that happens when you're so like up here with, you know, spirituality.
Well, she did
Always
say
do
she
less than
was
1
a
minute.
charismatic
I
Christian.
mean, maybe I'm
Yeah.
just good at faking tongues then, even to myself.
Oh,
I mean,
nah.
If you were
Nah. I
charismatic
mean,
about it, you were
yeah.
in it. So I would say that was enough justification for whatever to say, hey, this person is really in it. Tap into.
so Antonio, I think you were talking about tongues still, speaking in tongues.
Yeah, just the parallels to the Hebrew language and tongues is was quite fascinating to me in Israel and seeing like, okay, this is these people's native language. But yet my first introduction to it essentially was being a kid in church and watching this person who, as far as I know, has never been to Israel, has only ever read that Bible in English, but can speak this language that to me at that age sounded like Minion language. It didn't make any sense, but just like the Minion language, if you listen deep enough, the Minion language is composed of about 7 or 8 different languages, I think. So you'll hear French, you'll hear Spanish, you'll hear French, you'll hear Portuguese, you'll hear Dutch, German. It's spread throughout the Minion language because it's based off of real languages, but it sounds just like gibberish. So it's one of those things of like, well, how do you tie these two together? Well, the majority of the stories in the Bible are in Israel, you know, the people of Israel, the tribes of Israel. So it makes sense that speaking in tongues, the mother tongue, if you're consumed by the Spirit, and the Spirit was around during that time frame, the Spirit only necessarily knows the language of that time. It never needed to learn English because it always has a medium that can speak that language,
Right.
which is supposed to be the preachers, the pastors, the faith leaders, at the point where they're in their, you know, evolution of where they're at in the spirit, they're able to listen to the spirit. They've never said the spirit spoke to them in English or whatever language that they're talking about. They just say the spirit spoke to me.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, I guess it's safe to assume at that point they've learned Hebrew.
Right.
The Bible was written in Hebrew. I mean, I always, you know, make the parallel of, you know, it's interesting to me that people who are so, you know, Bible thumping about a Bible that they can't read the original language, so you have to trust the translators or who you know who edited after the translators to see what is allowed in that Bible. So for most faiths, it's like it's really funny. Christianity is probably one of the only faiths that its tenets are translated by somebody else. All the other
Mhm.
faiths, they're reading in their native language for their faith. So who's really faking here?
I wonder if like the Bhagavad Gita and stuff was Sanskrit, but even so, I suppose that's a more ancient version of
Yeah, it's a lot of
Hindi.
Aramaic languages, so they're all based off of a lot of the same stuff.
Mhm.
Now, see, it was always my understanding though that it wasn't like one language because it always sounded like different things. And so
Well,
the
you,
way it was described in my church was that it was like angelic languages or something like that. And I've heard people in the like woo-woo side of you know, like witchy more side of things, um, think that they're like the language of the Pleiadians, you know, from like different star systems and things like that. And
I
so I
mean,
feel like they're different. Are you saying they're all one language?
I mean, essentially they could be because if you think about it, Spanish is a perfect example. Spanish changes by region, but it's still Spanish.
mhm.
Is there really any reason to think Hebrew or Aramaic languages are any different? Is
I
I
just don't know
mean,
why we would assume it's Hebrew though,
well, I mean, why
I
would it?
mean,
or related to Hebrew.
Why would
it's
it be?
it's it's more so Aramaic than really Hebrew.
I
Well,
mean, but they're
Aramaic is what
synonymous at
Jesus
this
spoke.
point, right? But
Yeah,
they're synonymous. I mean, we can't really
but
separate them
then
out because the people who
right,
speak those native tongues, we don't really have access to.
right,
It's like
and
America is
then
so hyped up on Israel because it's religion, but most
mhm.
people who study these religions have never been to Israel.
at all.
Well,
Not even been close to it. A lot of
Yeah,
them have never left the United States,
or their state.
right? Their
or their
town
county.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Right. So that understanding, it goes a long way to even just have a bit more world understanding of it too. But you have to really be able to accept that you're tapped into something bigger, because some people will push back on it, or essentially like I'm thinking back to some show I watched, which is funny how TV plays with these themes in ways that are acceptable and they will swallow it. But I can't remember what the show was, but essentially it was a show about this person who was just like tapped into spirits and things, and they would just do like crazy drugs or something to numb their senses just so they can get through the day, because they were
Mhm.
being overwhelmed by like spirits talking to them and all the other stuff. I can't remember what show it was.
But see, then I think science would come in and say they've got,
Schizophrenia.
right, like
That's what I
malfunctioning.
thought as you were saying that.
Right. Well, I mean, that's two different levels of understanding. If you're not tapped in, you have to justify why these people
Mhm.
are acting that way in order for you to be okay with where you're at. But isn't that
Right.
part of the human condition of ignorance and not being able to accept the fear of the unknown?
Mhm.
I have always kind of believed that maybe not all. I mean, yes, probably there are schizophrenics that are, really delusional or whatever. But I always think too, how can we know if it is schizophrenia or this person really just seeing things that we can't?
Can it be both?
It could be both, or either, or none.
Now, I don't know about schizophrenia, but there's multiple personalities. I think they call it DID now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so the thing with that, though, and again, I don't know if schizophrenia is related, but in those situations, it's almost exclusively people who suffer just horrible abuse in their childhood.
Yeah.
And so we think that they've kind of fragmented their brains to separate out chunks so they can keep things from themselves,
Right.
right? And so they create other people to help them manage things.
Yeah, to assess
And
what
so, I mean, growing up in the doomsday cult I grew up in, sorry, I guess I didn't preface any of that, but that would definitely have been called demon possession,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so
Well,
it's like, and so for me to think of it in scientific terms feels safer, right? If we can explain what brains are doing. Um, the demon part is scary to me. So like if we believe in spirits, are demons just the spirits that we don't like
I
or that
think
do
so.
things we don't like?
I think it's
the
bad
way
energy.
the way I would describe that is based off Christianity, because like even from, like I say, from this book encyclopedia, it says that demons are the things that Christianity doesn't accept.
Mm-hmm. I'd like that.
Whereas like they all part of everybody's culture and they all meant to be good things, but Christianity has demonized everybody's but their own.
Yeah.
True. Well, it goes to what Antonio was saying about accepting the fear of the unknown, right? So
Right.
it's a fear of the unknown or fear of, well, I guess it is things that scare us. That's things we don't know about, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Wow.
Just like if they tell you, oh, you part of the occult, but don't understand you really all the occult do is study mysteries.
Yeah.
Yeah, means hidden.
Hmm. But people don't know that they mystify it so bad and scare you away from it, because yeah, you gotta think about it. If you start studying occult knowledge and what is the agnostic knowledge, you'll understand that it shows you a whole lot a bigger picture than what they try to put you in that box for.
Yeah. So it seems to me, Raphael, like you have this larger spirituality, but there are pieces of the box of Christianity that you accept as maybe as part of that larger thing, but also because it is the um, culture you grew up in and are familiar with and find comfort in. Am I? Tell me. I don't
Uh,
want to put words in your mouth, so tell me if I'm
kind of
it's
both.
yeah.
I mean, it's
both.
blended in with within the culture, so you're
Hmm.
doing, it's like being able to be religious and accept superstition.
Right.
Essentially, they are dueling concepts, but you can go to church and then still not cross paths with a black cat coming out the church.
Right.
It's
You
being
know,
able
it's
to
weird though.
accept both sides of that, because it is pulled together into one thing.
Hmm.
the superstition part is super interesting that you mentioned that, though, because it's so recent, I think, that Christianity tries to eschew the superstitious. I think it was because even in Victorian times, sorry to be really Eurocentric, y'all. In Victorian times, they did like seances and stuff, and they were super Christian and like prudishly Christian. So it was this weird thing where they like could accept both at the same time. And then you get to, oh, I want to say like 1930s US time, maybe. There was like Christian revivals, tent revival stuff going on. And it was like sort of from there, the acceptance of superstitious things, or like like simple home remedy witchcrafty things, got really vilified. And I don't know, to me, looking at history, that's how I feel a timeline kind of went. But obviously that's just something I've seen, and it's probably not the whole picture. I don't know, what do you think about that? Because the superstition does seem to be accepted with religion the majority of the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like a lot of people were considered witches and they were just herbalists.
Yeah.
So it was like instantly, oh, you doing witchcraft because you healed a person from something that they thought couldn't be healed from it, but it was literally you understanding nature and the spirit of nature or something like that, of how certain spirit or certain things can heal other things because you connected to that nature.
I
Yeah.
think a lot of that demonization comes by being pushed out by something else. So I think that before, whenever women were the ones doing the healing and everything like that got pushed out whenever doctors started, like it started being something that was monetized more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, male
Oh,
dominated and everything. And it was like, well, now these are just women that should just, like we need to control them. We need to, yeah, that's what I think. And actually, I took a class in college about, I mean, it wasn't about that specifically, but it was like, it was talked about one day.
huh. So is greed and profit the reason we make the boxes of spirituality? Or are we making a
Exactly.
Yes,
package of it?
I think
Exactly.
so.
I mean, in the arc of history, at least for the sections of it that we have a decent understanding of, we do know for a fact that Christianity has definitely been used for the purpose of power and profit. I mean,
And
even in the fact that, like I was talking before, like the deities that you worship, most people's deities look like them.
mm-hmm.
They talk like
Someone
them.
some type
So,
of way.
it to be able to say, okay, well, my deity looks nothing like me. Well, what does that really mean for your culture? Is that actually your culture, or is it one you were forced into and now you have to accept? But I mean, again, like Santeria, they had to pull their saints and spirits and things into another medium. So they were still worshiping the same thing, just in secret. And that was just survival at that point.
Mm.
That's just what you have to do at some point. So I lost where I was going with that.
Yeah, I feel like that was a separate conversation. I thought it
It
was
had
because
a
I've been
time
smoking this
and I
whole
lost
time.
it. Later, something happened. It was just like squirrel. I
Okay.
lost the whole thing.
Oh, it's good. This is good. Don't worry, we like rabbit trails around here, don't we?
I don't let us down like 4 or 5, so yeah.
Yeah. Um. What was the start of that conversation? I might be able to remember it.
I mean,
When we got back on, we were on
talking
speaking in
about you speaking in
tongues.
tongues.
Superstition and being able to accept that
There.
and the faith at the same time. Yeah, it's the superstition wasn't necessarily demonized, but also I think there may have been almost a respect for it because most people's actual. So I think at the point where they became like, how putting a different title on like old wives' tales don't sound
Yeah,
like
Mm-hmm.
superstitions. It
that's
sounds
true.
real acceptable and it sounds like some old country shit
Mhm.
Right.
for Europeans that is very acceptable because while, once you become white, you essentially sacrifice your actual culture, then remnants of it are a whole lot easier to accept when they align with the power structure that you're now sitting in. Whereas superstition or black magic, well, those don't sound like your culture. So why would you think they're benefiting you?
And there are a lot of superstitions that are acceptable, but we call them other things like holidays and um Valentine's Day, like things like that is like, or blowing a birthday cake, like blowing the can,
Make a
lighting the candle,
wish.
blowing the birthday cake. These things, if you think about it, the ones that are still accepted are the ones that you still like. Someone still makes money off of all of those.
Mhm.
Or you can hide it in plain sight.
You can hide
It's
it
gonna
in
keep
plain
coming
sight.
back to that.
I mean, you can make money off of anything. I think just being able to hide things in plain sight or less, make it sound. It's the sugar with the medicine.
Yep.
Is it easy to swallow? Yeah, okay, then you can go for it. It's like, here's a great example. Um, integration. Integration was a whole lot easier to swallow when they realized it didn't really cost them anything. But at the point where they said, oh, well, we might not have phrased this properly. We don't just want to be able to sit at the same lunch counter. We want to be able to afford to buy the same hamburger because we're being paid less for the same reasons we were segregated. So, it's the empty gesture of it all. It's the we're gonna remove the Aunt Jemima name, but not actually do anything substantial to repair the harm.
I am lost.
It was another rabbit trail, but it was also
It
another good.
was. It's not
I
just
mean,
me.
I
It is.
mean, well, we
It's
have it recorded, so we'll see the path. It's
Did I hit
okay.
record? I did.
it,
Okay.
it's people can accept things that sound good.
With
Really, that's what it comes down to. If it sounds good and it doesn't sound, evil or whatever the case may be, then yeah, of course you're gonna be.
Uncomfortable, because that's where people
yeah.
start like people start feeling uncomfortable, then they
Yeah.
get all fragile, like, oh no, someone's making me feel uncomfortable, make them stop it.
Yeah. Well, and that's why taking off the name on Aunt Jemima is so great, because then white people can go, oh, damn, glad we took care of that, and feel like they fixed it.
Yeah.
The crazy part about it was certain images were actually agreed to. Like Uncle
Really?
Ben, yeah, certain images were agreed to. Like they actually agreed to do that and got paid for it.
Yeah, but
Interesting.
it's like diplomacy at the end of a gun, though.
What?
So diplomacy at the end of a gun is I'm going to be diplomatic and peaceful, but while I got a gun to your forehead,
Mm.
let's make a deal to be friendly while I'm threatening you.
Hmm.
That's essentially what the Aunt Jemima Uncle Ben situation was, because while it was a black woman at the World's Fair, at the booth making pancakes and advertising Aunt Jemima pancakes, they also wouldn't give the black delegations actual space at that same World's Fair except for that purpose. And it was another country's area where we actually got space to speak at that, because if I remember correctly, I want to say the SNCC, the Southern Negro Christian Council or something like that, or it was a student, anyway, a student nonprofit. I'll get all either way. Uh, the people who were trying to actually do the good work and the real work couldn't get space, but the people who were essentially tap dancing for white people were given all the space.
Mm,
But at the
that
same
tracks.
time, you got to be able to afford to take care of your family. And some people, it's just a pill you got to swallow it as well. Making not necessarily decent money, but they're making money and they have a steady job. And then under certain circumstances, you just kind of have to accept that. It sucks.
Yeah. Hmm. How do we make it better?
Education.
Yeah.
And improving the
I
environment
learned a lot just now.
pieces.
Yeah. I guess, yeah. I mean, I'm certain most people don't know the story of who the people were. I didn't know the story of the
It's
woman that was based on having been a like an exhibitor at the fair.
Yeah, it's come out a lot more in the last few years, but it definitely wasn't a commonly known story until they started talking about it, which I think was one of the reasons why I was like, oh, here's an easy target. It's like another one was the Washington Redskins. They had been on their ass for years about changing the name of their team, and they were like, fuck off, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. We're not doing it. And then finally, when everything hit the fan, they were like, you know what? Maybe we can change this name. It's not really going to cost us any real money, and we can use the old stuff for nostalgia purposes and charge twice the amount for it because it's no longer in rotation. And then it was the Washington football team. And now it's the Washington Commanders. And I'm just, wow.
Oh, I hadn't heard that resolution.
Yep, that happened, I want to say last year. They switched to the Washington Commanders.
Commanders.
I'm if you look at the color of the Redskins, what color are they? They're not. They're the Washington Redskins were what, a reddish color, right?
Yeah, maroon and white.
Mm-hmm. Like even the little Indian person was a red person.
Yeah.
So I mean, you also got to think about it, like as far as like even with like a lot of people trying to connect to the indigenous American Indians and realizing, okay, I'm copper and I look like this picture here. You know what I'm saying? It's trying to hide a lot of things. And so to slow down your research because a lot of people are gaining research with that. Like they like because once you realize who you are, then you start tapping into your your culture and the spirituality of your cultures and things of that nature.
Way to bring
So
it back, Raphael. Yeah, that's amazing. Hmm. So as a white person in this group, I'm hesitant to even bring this up, so you can tell me if I am wrong. But I was recognizing what you said about, coming here and then you're white and like you lose everything else that you were before that, right? And I found that to be true. Like it was always really interesting to me to know what percent Britain and what percent Germany and what percent Finland, because obviously that's the region. And but I never had any connection to any of those cultures. And not until Arely and I started joining into witchy things. And then I was like, oh, well, what were my ancestors before Christianity came? And it opened up a whole new like set of stories and interesting things to think about. And just gave me something to think about other than my mother and grandmother who were religious and detrimentally so to themselves, So there is value in that. And I think it might even be hard to connect to the spirit without first feeling like a connection to ancestors or something.
exactly, like
Yeah.
in order for you to connect to even the spiritual or whatever religion they try to put you in, you have to understand who you are first. And once you understand who you are first, now you start to connect to the greater spirit, the great, you know what I'm saying? And it brings it all back. And now even with you going to, let's say you are in a church. Once you realize who you are, now you connect to other people and help them connect. And it's a whole lot more impactful and healing once you realize who you are, that you can help others reach that same spiritual height. But
I,
it's gonna take you focusing on who I am, where I come from, understand my history, my like deep history, enough that you can see, okay, my ancestors worship this particular god or deity, and they led us this way. We had this. Okay, so now when I connect to my neighbor and realize, okay, my neighbor is tapped into the same spirituality I am, that's where unity is going to come in. It's not necessarily always being nice and friendly. A lot of times, your spirituality will connect you stronger than just being a physical person.
yeah.
Yeah. And I'll
Except
take
I
that.
think,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say the idea that, me and my neighbor who have these different ideas are actually connected to the same spirituality makes sense to me. But where we get ourselves in trouble is because of, my deep history and all of my life experiences that make me who I am today gives me a perspective on that. Or like, well, everybody's coming to it with their own shit, right? Their own history, their own baggage.
Mhm.
And so that stuff so gets in the way of being able to connect at what's behind it, the spirituality part.
Mhm.
And I feel like every church experience I have had, it feels to me now like the intention of that space or that situation was literally to keep the lid on the box so that I couldn't access that.
Man, that is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly what it is, because you also got to look at it. A lot of churches are fed by who? The government. They're governmentally subsidized, and the government chooses and picks what you will are allowed to preach and what you're not allowed to preach. So that disconnects you as well from what your spirits, what you really supposed to be worshiping, how you supposed to be worshiping, and now you all confused, and the box is getting tighter until you literally have a break and you leave the church. So I'm saying, to go on your own paths. And that's what happening now. As you will see, a lot of people are literally going on spiritual journeys trying to find out who they are, because the box has gotten so tight that you can't fit anymore.
I'm really
So you
excited about that.
so
Well,
now
I'm worried
you
about it. I think this is where a lot of the book bannings and all these like taking rights away and all these things that are going on. I think that's where all that is coming from. Is like people are getting too,
it
they're
is.
too educated. They're getting too, there's too loose.
Hmm.
We gotta, push them back into that box.
It is. It is exactly is. Because everybody's kicking the door, kicking the lids off the boxes and leave and walking out. And like, hold up, wait, we can't control them anymore. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta think about, like, even like, I hate to bring it up, but think about how united people became after George Floyd. Like,
Yeah.
countries that we had never communicated were standing up for one person.
Yeah.
That was the instant, okay, something's wrong.
Yeah.
But something felt strong about that
Yeah.
and beautiful.
I mean,
And
Patty and
that's
I went to some of those protests. We got gas, what do you call that? The pepper spray bombs or whatever. That was
That's the
not
federal
fun.
building.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you'll realize that spirituality connects a lot of things that people don't think it really connects.
Even
It's
just the
it's, it's
simple
connected to a
concept
lot of things.
if it's explained properly. The
Right.
example I was going to use is how, like in India, I think it is, where they worship cows. And
Yeah.
to an American, it's like, oh, you worship cows. That's weird. Well, that's because you eat cows. But if they explain to you the concept that you can be reincarnated into a cow, so you don't want to eat your uncle who came back as a cow, well, then it's a whole lot easier to accept that, because it's like, okay, I can see why you worship this cow, because you think this cow is a medium for your ancestor.
Hmm.
That's fair. It's not that far. It's not much more far fetched than the guardian angel thought process of,
Mm-hmm.
this is this person watching over me. If that cow is the person watching over you, then that's not that hard to understand and respect. You don't have to believe their religion. You just have to have an understanding of what they believe, so you
Hmm.
can respect them as people and their culture.
Right. Right. So yeah, you would not. I mean, go to the good, like, even in America, like, if you know Indians don't eat cows, I'm pretty sure you would, like, hey, you want a hamburger?
Right.
Because I mean, that's just like even dealing with Muslim, knowing they don't eat pork, and you offering them slipping bacon into their food.
Oh, that is really disrespectful.
And
Mhm.
I've literally seen that happen.
Oh
So
no, that is wrong. I mean, it's wrong to do the cow thing, especially if you know about it, but yeah, doing that is because,
yeah,
well, at
I've
least
seen it
so the
happen.
Muslims that I've known, like personally, have been African Muslims. So I don't know if there's a difference between that Muslim and Middle Eastern or anything like that. But what he said was that it is because pigs are considered unclean because they sweat
Hmm.
in and not out. So I don't know if that's all Muslims
Right.
or that's just his region of Africa. So doing that is like, I mean, probably how I would feel if somebody put, like something dirty. I don't
Yeah.
even want to like consider like the things like spit. Let's just say spit. Let's just say that for now. Like I
Yeah,
would
I
consider
mean,
that really disrespectful.
yeah, I've seen that in Afghanistan so many times.
Oh
Mm.
no.
Yeah.
So definitely the perfect environment for that kind of disrespect to happen when you vilify a whole group of people based off of a religious faith of a whole section of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are bound to happen, but you know, I imagine to some level there may have been some of that here as well
Yep.
with when Jewish people came, because you know the concept of not eating pork isn't that much far fetched from kosher foods for Orthodox Jewish people.
Right.
It's about not, you know, putting unclean things into your body.
Yeah.
It's a simple
And
concept that people should understand.
groups can be very serious about those rules. I mean, I grew up not eating pork as well. And I remember the time my family went to a buffet on a road trip. And only after we had the ribs realized they were not beef ribs.
Oh.
The guilt that I felt. Yeah.
And didn't you
Yeah.
feel sick? That's crazy. I would think that pork, I mean, I was vegetarian for what, 5 years, and I still haven't been able to start eating pork again because that's the one that takes the longest to digest. So if I eat pork at all, I will have a headache for days,
Oh no. I mean, at least not
like
that I
a
remember.
bad migraine.
Yeah, it gives you
Oh,
crazy migraines, give you high blood pressure. It's a lot.
that's fair. Okay, so I have a question about all of this, right? Like the word tolerance is thrown around a lot, right? Between religions and stuff, like being tolerant of other religions. And I would add, obviously, we should be respectful too, like, not trying to trick people into eating things that's against their religion and stuff. But do you think that it's rude or disrespectful to question the veracity of those faiths, of those beliefs? Because I have a thought that, like, I wonder if, like, is it better if we're tolerant of each other's beliefs in that way, or would it be better if we all believe like because can we, like, they can't all be true at once, or maybe they can. See, this is getting complicated. Sorry.
A
Let
lot
me
of
back up. uh is it rude or disrespectful to try to question the veracity of a faith or belief, or should it be more of a, like, we're just going to live in, like, working around each other's thoughts?
I would say it's a both and because you honestly need both, but it's also got to come from a place of respect where if you're questioning like how does this work because you want to understand versus like that's just bullshit, it don't make sense. And you can still feel that way, but as long as you come at it from a matter of okay, I'm trying to understand. It's like people who don't get how somebody can quote unquote blindly believe in something versus having science to prove it when essentially they're the same damn thing, in my opinion. One is just saying, I don't, I can't just quote unquote blindly believe in it. I need to have some kind of justification or something that's somewhat tangible to hold on to so that I can believe it versus this person who says, I'm just okay in believing this. And that's, you know, looking at it from an optimistic standpoint and not taking shots at certain people. But um,
I don't even know what he's talking about.
it's I think it just depends on the context. I mean, some things are just going to be very hard to believe coming from where you're at, but if we're actually teaching about other people's religions with the context of this is what they believe in, and this is how this works, and this is how the society's worked around those beliefs, like we did when we, you know, try to teach about native populations and the things they believe in and the context of it, it makes it a whole lot easier to understand because even if you go into Norse mythology, and breaking down the areas where the Norse people lived and the deities that they worship. Well, it's easy to understand why they worship things the way they worship because their deities fall in line with the environment and the way that they live.
Mhm.
That really won't be any different for any other place. Yeah, you're still going to question, like, that's weird. If you come from a tropical place and they got snow gods, you're like, why the hell? Yeah,
Yeah,
you're going to question that because that's just where you're at. But I mean, it's got to come from a place of curiosity versus a place of criticism.
right.
Where I start questioning, and I don't feel bad about it, is whenever somebody is trying to act like their religion is the only correct one, or if they're using their religion to be hateful towards others. Because then to me, it's like, if I'm talking to a Christian and they're just like, Muslim religion is absolute ridiculousness, is whatever, whatever, or any other, no, don't, okay, I haven't heard that much, but I have heard like a Christian person talk to me about how the belief in Zeus and all that, Zeus and Persephone and all of those things are complete, like that's all make believe. And I'm just like, I mean, is it really any more than what you believe? Like it's what is currently believed in the culture at the moment. It is mythology, you know.
I guess I'm trying to get at what you were just saying, the idea of like when those beliefs have a potential to start impacting like our lawmaking and our like
Yes.
what we do at school board meetings.
Yeah.
And you know, so like I'm trying, I guess that like
Separation of
yeah,
church and state? Is that what you're
I
saying?
mean, in theory, yeah.
That's when I
Raphael?
start getting defensive about it, because okay, yes, if somebody, let's just keep going, you know what, let's not even go with the pork thing. Let's go with how Mormons don't drink alcohol, right? So now no one can drink alcohol everywhere because they don't, you know, it's like, why? That's your thing. You don't drink your alcohol. Why does everyone else have to do it? Like I need a good argument. And I've never heard a religious argument that makes sense of why it's justified in any religion to oppress other people.
Because it shouldn't be. That was supposedly one of the founding tenets of separation of church and state, was to prevent what happened with England and the Catholic Church from happening in the United States. But that is not what happened. The exact same thing happened.
Right.
That was, you know, by
Right.
the stories that we're told, that was the reason why they left, was because, you know, the church was doing whatever, and the empire essentially was doing what they wanted and had more influence over the church and whatever. And religious freedom, we're going to start a new country, but also, you know, get rid of a whole population that was already there. But religious freedom, but we're all
Right.
basically different sects of the same religion, and there is no other religion that we accept. But, you know, separation of religion and state, and you're free to believe in what you want. Subtext, if it's
Until
Christian.
I feel like it's not okay.
Small letter. Yeah,
Mhm.
small letters. You believe what you want as long as it's Christianity.
Right.
And the
Puritan.
particular type of Christianity that has been narrowed down, because I really don't believe that Christianity started as narrow as it is now.
No, it
I think
didn't.
they picked the best, you know,
Yeah.
part that made it the most comfortable, made people the most, you know, like
I mean, the
blindly
Council of
follow a
Nicaea.
leader. So yes, I do believe some people blindly follow leaders, and I think that's cult mentality, and that's a problem. I need a culture.
Well, so then if we end up making these human decisions with our with faiths that potentially impact how we decide things, is it then valid to start like not attacking, right? Like that's the thing you don't want to do, is attack it, but like how can we somehow scoop these the faith things that are like personal and stuff, and like how do we keep that even like personally separate from like, hey, we need to make decisions about how we operate these social structure things that the library system or whatever, right?
Well, I mean, the
So,
simple answer is the Bill of Rights, the preamble. You have tenets that don't require religion to be the basis of your decision, to say, at the base level, these are the base things we need, that everybody needs, and leave wiggle room within those to do as you need to within your religious faith.
But they're using the Christian box to shit on the Bill of Rights.
But that's the reason. I mean, if we look at the founders, mind you, the founders did study multiple religions,
right.
but also they were fucked up people. So it's not even like they didn't know. They admitted to how fucked up they were, and everything they said they were going to do, they literally put on paper, because who the hell's going to check them? So I guess to tie it back in with the topic of spirituality is that, to me, most people need something, a beacon or something to guide them. And that's why religion in itself is so attractive. And spirituality is not only a light to guide people, but it's an understanding of where you fall within it. So even if you do get lost, you can still find your way and discover as you go instead of just having a single focus of getting to this one point. And I guess the ant story comes into place where um, I was thinking about recently how city kids don't have as much exposure to nature as country kids do, and they don't have a healthy respect for nature and a general understanding, so they're afraid of it. And talking about ants and how as a kid, like I thought ants came from cornbread because we left a pan of cornbread out, or half a pan of cornbread to be specific, because I definitely ate half of it myself. Um, and I thought, the next morning I woke up and it was full of ants, and I'm like, oh, ants come from cornbread. That's cool. And my mom explained to me that's not the case. And then as I dug deeper into it, my daughter was freaking out about ants in the cabinet because they got on her cinnamon rolls. And as we were cleaning them up, it kind of hit me like she hasn't had the exposure to nature, at least not at this age. Like when she was younger, she got to really enjoy it at home, but just having that exposure, like growing up around ant hills and getting to watch them and understand them versus just being afraid of them, because instead of you being a part of the environment where they exist as well, they're invading your environment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a different way of looking at the whole thing. And then explain to her that, like, ants have a scout ant. They go out and they find the food. And then they leave a special spit, as I told her, that leaves a signal for the other ants to follow. And they will follow that. And even if you like put a finger or something down in the path of that line of ants, they will go around it because they are singularly focused on getting that food and they find that signal. But the way to get rid of them is you got to wipe down everything in that area to get rid of that special spit, as I called it. And if you do, then they'll be lost. They'll just go around in circles or wherever trying to find that signal or the next signal because they're singularly focused on that one thing. And that's kind of what some religions do to me, is that they do give you a singular focus, and some people need that purpose and focus, but it also can be easily co-opted because all it takes is understanding people's desperation for that hope or that need for guidance, and you can take advantage of that. And it's happened so many times to so many well-meaning people to the point to where you remove that from them and they're lost. And that's part of the pushback for some people, is like, like I heard a lady that I was cool with when I worked at Tesla, like it kind of bothered her that as some of these things were happening back then, that it was like talking about how God was black. And it was throwing some people off because they were like, if that's wrong, what else is wrong? And like, is this even real anymore? And it's like, if that is something that you're really so focused and tied in on, and you start unraveling one piece, then it's like, oh wow, now I'm lost and I have no real understanding. Of course, people are going to push back on that. Versus if spirituality, you can get lost and still not be lost within it because it's all discovery at that point. You still understand that you belong to a bigger universe or system or energy, and that you can just exist within it and discover, but still have respect for everything around you. And in that journey, you're just opening your eyes up to more of it and find your place in it versus just having a singular purpose to move towards. And if you remove that purpose, you become lost.
That even ties back to the question of, is it disrespectful, rude, etc., to challenge the veracity of beliefs?
Right.
Which, Raphael, my friend?
To me, to me, it all really depends on the search, because I can literally guarantee you there are people right now that's like, okay, there's got to be more to it. If you're at that point where it's got to be more to life than just this here, yeah, it's good that you interrupt it. Somebody interrupts it. Somebody changes it, because now it puts you on a path of the actual truth. Like ever since, literally ever since my dad died, I have literally been on a path to find the truth. But then you add into it like 3 years later, I lose my nephews and my stepdad and the house I lived in as a kid in a house fire. So
Oh,
now I'm really screwed up. Like, where do I go? Where do I go? But the thing that always brought me back was I'm spiritual. Like Tony said, me being spiritual really put me back on my path. And even before, even like whenever I was in Miami and I had I say my death experience and it reset and the path I was on. But then as I got coming back to being as me, because like once you have one experience, like I say, when it messes with your brain, you literally reset to who you really were in the beginning and walking that path. And then I kind of got veered back into some path like Christianity or whatever. So now I'm on this path again, but something came along again and disrupted it. But the only thing that really keeps you going that way is your spirituality, your connection to your higher power, your the true the let me see how I even say it. I say the most high, the big creation, the consciousness of who you are. That is what keeps you grounded. Like even though we as people tend to worship this or worship that, worship cars, whatever. That's what you get attached to. That's what you feel is going to be there beside you because you want something to you. We are primarily, in my opinion, meant to worship something because you got to think about how attractive, how attached we get to things, certain
Yeah.
things, and we like somebody get a car, a Ferrari or something. They like don't touch my car, don't scratch my car. Like even people with their grass, it's something that they worship. You know what I'm saying? So it's their spirit is somewhere that they attach themselves to. Is that is what I see. So sometimes you have to interrupt people's point of view or the way they see things just to get them back on the path. Just like with the Tony and the ants, right? Like you can literally like you can do it now. You can go outside and see a line of ants and draw a line through them. You ain't even gotta just draw a line through them. They run around until they find that path again. I used to do it all the time. Like A Bug's Life is a great story to watch for your kids to understand that. Like the part where the leaf fell, he said, "Oh my God, the line is lost," and he had to run around. They had to go lead him around the leaf just to get back on the path. So I mean, it's all spirituality is like I say, is a lot stronger than the boxes. So I mean, sometimes you got to break people out their boxes, even though they don't know they need to be broken out them boxes. So in my
Yeah.
opinion, like I say, it's good, but then sometimes it's not because if you break them out that box and then they lost for real, they don't know where to go. So you got to kind of like subtly lead them to the
I do
to
think that some people can't, like, not everyone is ready for it. I do think that
yeah.
it's possible to interrupt someone's, I forgot, I'm sorry, I forgot how the metaphor you used, but, or the saying that you use, but some people just can't handle it. I think that's why some people
Mm-hmm.
lose Jesus or you know, whoever they believe and like, and go kind of rebellious for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
And
can
that's
speak
why a
to
lot of people and that's why a lot of people be like, well, God, if God was good, why he let this happen? Because it's the way you've been taught it.
Mm-hmm.
Because even in the Bible, if you look at the Bible, in the New Testament, he's nice and calm, and but in the Old Testament, he was fucking people up left and right.
Uh-huh.
So
Genocidal maniac.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he was fucking you up left and right, no matter what you did. So I mean, that's the thing. But then you got to think about it. Nowadays, they mostly keep you in the New Testament. They don't see you toward that God that'll fuck you up just for looking at him wrong or looking at your neighbor wrong, something like that. So I mean, it's you can tell that it's a structure that they trying to veer you towards a certain way because they like, oh, the Old Testament is dead, it's gone, but is it really? Okay, because it's just we're still in the same land. Just because the time that they give you on the calendar goes by doesn't mean that spirituality hasn't died. Like even in the Old Testament, he tells you that he's a spirit, which people don't realize. Like he says, I'm a spirit, and you have to worship me as a spirit. So if I'm worshiping the spirit, why am I looking at a person on? You know what I'm saying? I'm looking at an actual person. So
I thought he walked in the garden though.
yeah, but
That
you
suggests
got
physicality. Okay, well, that is a rabbit
well,
trail.
well. I mean, even the wind walks in the garden.
That's true.
Yeah, you don't have to have legs to walk if you're a spirit.
In poetry language, yes, but not literally.
Well, we can't get any of this
Not
literally.
as an ambulation.
We have an omnipresent being that we can, have an argument over. Did he really walk? How many legs did he have? I bet he had 2 toes. Like,
For
yeah,
some reason, a penis usually. I don't know. It's
yeah,
just
it's like, what's he even gonna do with it? If he's the Alpha and
right.
the Omega, there's nothing to mate with. He just snaps his finger and things happen. So essentially, he's asexual. Or was it like seahorses where they? Yeah, it's a whole thing. Anyway,
Yes.
I mean,
I
and
mean,
those are the things that it's a curiosity that can come off disrespectful, but like it's really though, like some of the stuff you really have to say, okay, look, I can accept it, but also let's talk about this. Let's have some fun around this conversation. It's like I love how in Black culture how we can make fun of Christianity and Southern Baptist new ways of knowing, but still be respectful and like still go to church and still be religious or be faithful or be spiritual, whatever the case may be. Like we can make fun of it till we're blue in the face, but we still know where true north is. And I
mhm,
think that is ties into spirituality of when you really know what it is and where you stand on it, there's room for you to kind of poke at it. Because
yeah,
you're still gonna be able to find where you're at in it at the end of the day. And some of the shit is just funny. Like
yeah. I mean,
to this
even
day, I'm
take
still gonna laugh at somebody praise dancing because it is beautiful, but also hilarious. Because it's like, I know damn well this person didn't want to share a cookie with me yesterday, and now you got the Holy Ghost. Like you can make jokes like that, or just like there is gonna be the solid judging of like this motherfucker got the spirit, really, of all people. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's happening. You can see it on people's
yeah.
faces, the solid judgment,
Oh yeah,
while also being like, yes, I'm in the
yeah,
zone right now. But
yeah.
also, why not? We can't limit our emotions and reactions around some of this stuff. We just have to try to be respectful about it.
Right. Like, like even if you look at like even with like children, right? So they say we all are God's children, right? And then you turn around and you can even look at like Roman or Greek mythology where Zeus fucked every woman he found,
And probably a few men too.
and up I say, and sometimes men. So I mean,
He
hey,
was very out there.
I mean,
then you
when
got
Antonio was saying that we make our deities look like us, I mean, in all of their behaviors, I think too, until somehow, I guess Jesus is a bit different in that way, because the idea is that he didn't do all those horrible things that all the humans do. But like Zeus, yeah, that I had heard stories that like however social structures were ahead of Greek times, that like the kings or whatever of the land would frequently go around and rape the young women to make sure that it was their genes getting passed on. Um, and so it made sense then to people who study mythology that Zeus was, interacting with all these women because it was like mythology uh, encapsulating a shared history.
yeah. I mean, you got then you look at Poseidon got kids. You got
They all did. They had multiple
Aphrodite got
kids.
kids. Everybody had kids. I'm like, how the fuck y'all getting all these human kids?
They was fucking.
Like crazy. But then you turn around and look at if you study like Roman culture, that's all the fuck they did.
Yeah, they were
They
definitely
had
big on
orgies every
bathhouse
other week, I
orgies.
guess.
Orgies on orgies on orgies.
Right. So I mean, it made perfect sense.
And bestiality, which makes sense for like
Right.
centaurs and things. So yeah.
Yeah. Centaurs, Minotaurs,
Yeah.
And
satyrs.
Rome was pretty full of lead. They ate off of lead plates. They would
Mm-hmm.
put teaspoons of lead into their bottles of wine. So, like,
Yeah.
the wealthy people in Rome were so poisoned with lead.
And that does mess with your brain chemistry.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Makes aggressiveness happen too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's happening in America too, because
Yeah, with
we
the
had
lead
midnight.
poisoning in the water.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy. Like if we really just sit down and look at like all the things and how spirituality is really, really, really done and what it connects to, it will literally blow everybody's mind. Not the ones that literally in it, but the ones that's not knowing. They just walk around like zombies or some shit. Yeah, it would fuck them up.
Oh, to be connected to spirit,
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
source.
I mean, I could tell you like the first time I smoked weed, I literally felt my fingertips, the nerves in my fingertips, and I was like, "What the fuck is
The
this?"
top of the head too. That's what I always
Yeah,
feel.
you could feel like your nerve, like the electrical parts of your nerves, and I'm like, "Is this shit supposed to happen?" But it happened every time I smoke weed. I'm like, so I mean,
I mean, why wouldn't it? I mean, it's a part of the earth and the universe, and you
hmm
consuming it is just giving it a medium to communicate when it wasn't. Before it went in your body, it was rooted in the ground. It goes into your body, and you become the root. You are the antenna for it to communicate, and you tap into that frequency. So why wouldn't it? I would say the same thing for mushrooms.
yeah, I
That's
don't think
probably
I'm
why
ready for
when
that.
I get really high, I can see dead people.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing though.
It's a good thing. No, no, no. That's what I was saying before. I shield myself. I don't allow anything to come through unless I wanted to. And if it feels at all iffy, I'm like, you will not may not walk through this door.
I mean, I don't know, but you also at the same time you got to think like most spirits will come to you if they know you can see them to send out messages.
Well, for me, I find that they stick with the people with their
Familiar.
descendants or like that. That's what I find whenever I look. I don't, it's not like people are just coming forth. It's like I can, it's almost like I can, it's like opens a curtain and I can see what's already there, if
So
anything.
it's like seeing in behind the spiritual veil, so to speak.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
So the box I grew up in was such a big, thick steel one. It was a doomsday cult. Uh, man, it makes me want to be a box unwrapper.
Over it.
Is that?
It may that may be your destiny as well
Ooh, I like that. But is
because
it worthwhile? These boxes we've been.
Yes.
Sorry if I just jumped to this from something else. My brain's a little high. Um, so I mean, is that would it help us here
Yes.
on planet Earth, like in this physical
Yes.
life,
I think
if
so.
we
yeah.
opened more boxes,
It
like
depends.
whether we connected to the spirit that the box was pretending to be, or trying to be, um, would it be better for us all to work together if we weren't in our boxes?
I mean, there's gonna be boxes because there has to be adversity. Me and Raphael were talking the other day about I heard this thing that was you're gonna go through things. I think it was Dr. Black. I can't remember his first name right now, but he was talking about essentially that the things you go through are preparing you for something else further down in your life and your purpose. So whenever you get through them, you understand the lessons and how everything, how you navigate it once you get out of it. Something later on in life that, and he used in some cases like some people's trauma or the way they grew up or whatever the case may be. Once you get to the other side of it, there is a grander purpose for that understanding. And I was like, hmm. And it's interesting too because it's like the whole thing of like, why did God let this happen or why did Jesus let this happen? It's like chaos is going to be chaos because, but if you can find meaning in it, then you find your place in the universe, and it's a whole lot easier to accept it, and you can move along with it. It's like the cultures that understand that death is a part of the cycle, so you're not as afraid of death. You have a healthy respect for it. It's like we were joking the other day. I was like, well, I wasn't joking. Like, I want my funeral to be a party. There will be an open bar. We're gonna celebrate. Like, I'm still there. And that is my understanding of when it's my time to go, it's my time to go. I don't have control of that. But while I'm here, I'm going to live. I'm going to do what I can to help people. I'm going to enjoy the time that I got, and every day is a blessing.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
it.
that is. I mean, we really start to complicate it when we think of it as much more than that, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ants don't
And
question their existence. They know they need to get food to survive, and they do what they got to do. And neither do many of the other animals. I mean, we try to compare our lives to animals, but really, they're more purpose driven than we are. They know what they need to do and
right,
how they want to live. Anything
yeah,
external to that isn't really a concern. They don't question. You know, what's this phrase? Lions don't concern themselves with the lives of lambs or something to that effect.
that's it.
That makes sense. Like, why? Why would you worry? You're a lion. Be a lion.
I think we've been conditioned to believe that our purpose is to keep getting is to be what it is now, right? Like we've
Mhm.
been conditioned to believe that we're supposed to work harder and make more money and have more babies and all that stuff. But really, if you really think about it, if we removed all the reasons that we need that stuff, we wouldn't need it. Like, okay, hold on. I feel like that I just said something stupid. Am I making sense?
You making sense?
I am?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm gonna put my bong away now.
That's the conditions trying to take override your brain from what you're already saying.
Maybe. I felt like I stopped making sense for him after I started talking. I was like, wait
Well,
a minute,
for
did I just
if
talk in
you
a circle?
like literally just what you said as you were saying it, you made your own point.
Did I really?
Yeah,
Funny.
it happens to me a lot. Trust me. Like, what the hell? What did I say? Stupid? No, that made perfect sense. But, I
I
mean,
do
but
question myself a lot.
even I mean, but that's a good thing because most people don't. They just go as robots.
Yeah.
But I mean, just like uh being the box opener, like there's times that you like the word there. I guarantee you, every culture has a box opener or two or
Hmm.
three or four. Some may be afraid to do it, and some are like, hell yeah, fuck this shit up. I'm a disruptor. I'm gonna disrupt everything you got going on. But they
That was
need
the word.
But wait, now I'm starting to
Disruptor.
think. Now I'm starting
Disruptor.
to think something else because at first I was like, yeah, you should open more boxes. But now if you think about it in history, the people that were opening boxes maybe, you know what I mean? I don't know. Never mind.
Not every
Mm,
box should be open. I'm gonna put that out
yeah.
there. There are boxes
that's
that
true.
should
Like
be.
you want to stay on Pandora's box,
Yeah, there's some boxes we throw that motherfucker in the Pacific Ocean with a weight on it and let it stay there.
right? Right. Yeah. So even with the disruptors, they gotta know which ones to open, which not ones not
Commonplace.
to open.
Yeah, there are
Yeah.
certain things you do open, but I mean, you open things with a purpose. I think that's really
Yep.
what we should be saying is
Hmm.
if there is a purpose for opening that box, then open it. If there's not, then leave that shit closed because you let the wrong thing out
And it's
and
all
you
fucked
get
up.
Trump. So let's make sure there are some boxes we want to keep boxes spaces for and click and keep them closed.
Yeah.
By that, do you mean there are populations of people and or sects of religion that we shouldn't try to disavow people of their harsher notions in?
I mean, there's collective thought that is regressive in human evolution and universal knowledge that we should keep into a almost shamed place to say this is unacceptable, regardless of what you believe in or what you identify as. These things are just not acceptable. It's like we shouldn't be like look at the homeless situation that's becoming a global problem now. People are just accepting that there are homeless people and that they probably have mental issues or drug issues, and it's like, all right, well, that sounds good. If nobody's gonna or question that argument because it does sound valid, but the real question is, well, that should be a onesie twosie. How are there millions of homeless people? Isn't that more of a condition thing than an interpersonal thing? Because there's always going to be people who either can't quite cut it in the normal flow of something, or just have issues and the safety nets that should be protecting them aren't doing it. There's always going to be that, and not everybody's going to be able to be at the quote unquote bar. But how do you deal with those? Are you trying to make sure that it does stay to a minimum, or are you just saying, well, this is just a fact of life, quote unquote survival of the fittest, and accept that, well, as long as it's not me.
I really think there's a purposeful motivation in leaving the unhoused on the street to make sure all the people who do have a job and are housed no, they need to keep going to it, because look what happens if you don't. Okay, sorry,
it's
rabbit
also
trail.
it's also one of those things where it could be if you get out of line, if you stop doing what we say do, this is where you wind up. I mean, it also goes on top of the greed part where like this person can now you can be rich one day and then next day you know you home. All because somebody voted you out of your own company.
Fear is a
Yep.
very dangerous tool.
Also very useful.
It's useful, it works, but that's what makes it so dangerous.
Until you run up on people that don't have fear.
Yeah, that's a different conversation.
Well, I kind of feel like that was a teeny tiny little scratch in the surface, but it was also very deep. It was great. Is there anything that anyone came here feeling like they had thought about spirituality that they didn't get to share yet, even if it's like completely off topic?
I don't think so.
Ridiculous amounts of thoughts about these things all the time. So it's a matter of what do we want to possibly open another rabbit hole in 5 minutes left. Probably best just not open more rabbit holes.
That's fair.
Yeah, we got enough of them open that we got to close.
Yeah, it's always a rabbit hole. I mean, but the thing about rabbit holes they're useful. They have a purpose.
Yeah.
And, rabbits are fruitful and multiply for a reason. They have space to do it.
Yep.
I just feel like rabbit holes lead to really good conversations too, because it's clearly like things that are top of mind to us, and our brain like makes a connection from where we're at to a thing that must be important to us, and so we go there. So that's valid. I think it's great.
Depends on who you talk to, because some folks can't stand rabbit holes, and you instantly become a conspiracy nut.
See, that's what I'm saying. Some people can't handle that open box yet.
That was the thing I was going to say. I remember now.
That's good.
Having too many choices makes them want to put themselves in a box, because the simplistic nature of some of these things just makes their life easier because they can't have no choices. And understanding how little they are in the great scape of, the equinox or the universe, maybe the universe is a better word for that. That is not just uncomfortable, it's just unfathomable to the point of like, okay, let me just get a set little box that I can live within, and that's where I'm okay. I mean, there's still room to wiggle within that box for some people, but the simple nature of it is I don't have a bajillion choices. I got like maybe 2.
Right.
And then really, in all of it, we kind of narrow it all down to 2 choices anyway, right or wrong most of the time.
I would disagree with that.
Well, Antonio, to that point, I mean, there is a thing I have heard from people who've deconstructed from a Christian faith and consider themselves more like agnostic atheists now, where they will say that that is something that they miss about it, is that sense of like peace, or not like they're in turmoil, but that sense of like, this is figured out. I like have the answer. Right. And that was a loss to them when they deconstructed that faith.
Yeah, I've heard that as well.
I'm gonna say this, but we bit close to the end of wrapping things up. In reality, Christianity is really should really be based off agnostic belief versus the ones that we run off now. Because agnostic is really closer to the truth of who we are, or the religion, or I say religion as just for lack of a better word, the true religion of what they would give you Jesus as, versus the narrative that they have structured in Christianity.
I agree with that.
So
fascinating. You said agnostic, to take more of an agnostic view at it.
Yeah.
Well,
and there's another one. Is it the not libertarians. Is that it? Is there's a
don't even put them out
no?
there like
Okay,
that.
okay. Then what is it? There's a certain type of
Jehovah's Witness?
no.
Or they study all the religions?
No, it's like it's a belief system where every religion is true, right? Everyone's on their own path of a mountain. All you can see on your path is your side of the mountain. So everyone is on maybe on a different side of the mountain. So it doesn't mean that they're wrong. That where you're going is you're headed to the same place. It's all correct. It's just you only see what you can see. And there's a Eunice something. I don't remember. There's a specific type of religion. I think it is
It's like
mostly
a
Christian.
it's universal something, because they literally, like, I did a little thing for a ministry and they gave me a minister's license. It's
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's universal, some type of church.
Okay.
Universal Life Church. I'm a
Yeah.
pastor there also.
Is that it? Okay, yeah, because I heard that philosophy once, and I'm like, that is at the time that was the only religion that had made sense to me.
Oh, I think you might be talking about Unitarian.
Yes, that is
Yeah,
what I'm
okay.
talking about.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Well, okay, so I'm going to propose something. A couple of things came up, the idea of agnosticism and then the mountain metaphor. I wonder, would you two gentlemen be willing to come back for another episode at a later date and part 2, and we can use those things as our starting point?
Sure.
I'm always available, as long as I
Okay.
ain't at home. But I'm on the road more than I'm home, so.
Okay. All right. Well, this is Blend the Bedroom signing off till next time.